Hi guys, this is instructor Clarissa Walker from First Year Writing 100, talking to you about the Atavist 1 project. Atavist number 1, the pre-work assignment is what is due at 8 a.m. Wednesday, November 15th. I'm giving you this assignment with a brief screen cast because I think it will help us to get a couple of the details together as you work your way through it. So let's get started. Okay, so basically, Atavist number 1 is listed in the syllabus and it is inspired by Between the World and Me. The final Atavist is exclusively your decision, but you need to practice how to do them and more structure so that you know it'll be easier for you when you do it yourself. So essentially, from that book, there are 4 topics. So the first step to this assignment, which is due on Wednesday at 8 a.m., the first step is to choose a topic. You have 4 topics to choose from. 1 through 4 are your choices right here under the topic, and then you choose one, and you may only choose one because you want to focus a manageable atavist topic. So the first one is black bodies, which is, terminology, a concept that comes up in the book quite often. And this is if you choose or have an interest in diving deeper into the news events and the stories that Coates references in the book, like Eric Garner, Prince Jones, Mike Brown, these news events that inspired him to write this letter to his son. So your Atavist project would be essentially diving deeper into those areas and kind of exploring what he's saying about the relationship between the legacy or history of the black body in the United States. A very focused deep dive into that. The second one, number 2, is called Letters, and this is focusing on letter writing because this particular book was written um, as a letter to his son. So we're looking at the epistolary tradition, which is another word for a really nice scholarly word for letter writing. No big deal, but it's a good search term. And basically, we're looking at the history, the function of the just uncovering what letters have done and continue to be. We talked about the letters in class. We talked about Paul's letters to actually, Paul's letters to the Ecclesiastes and to the Romans in the Bible, which created the structure for the Christian faith. We talked about love letters written during World War II, which really archived a great deal of history from that time period for our country. Other wars. Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail is a famous letter that really captures one of the struggles internally in the Black community for the civil rights movement, the very beginning of the civil rights movement. And so then there are modern storytelling that happens with the use of letters that students have used. The film Dear John. They've even examined the rap lyrics of Eminem. That song "Stan" is a letter, and of course Coates' book, The Letter to His Son. Number 2, if you're interested in number 2, that's the letter. Number 3 is called uncomfortable. And uncomfortable is that word that comes from the exam question. But basically, this is an examination of the social constructivist. If you were interested in diving a little bit deeper in social constructivism in general, and we talked about this in class, there are many directions just to understand what are these people talking about, that race is a created thing. Racism is a created thing. So we talked about Lisa Nakamura, who even says that race and racism, as it lives offline, has been imported online. It's even, as she says in her work, and she looks in her work, into how it's even in video games. Video games in terms of how characters are selected, the profiles of characters, the demographics of the assassins, or whatever that may be. Those programmers are making decisions. There's some decisions about who gets to be what and who gets to be erased, and those decisions are where those questions of social constructivists really position their work. So you could look at other poets, you could look at other musicians like writers like Lisa Nakamura. You could look at other thinkers, whoever you'd like to look at. That's when you research and do your search term on social constructivist, in whatever direction that takes you in, that is of interest to you and true to your research question, which we'll talk about in a second. Number 4. If you choose number 4, it's called Who's Ta-Nehisi Coates? And this is a deep dive into who this author is, who he is as a thinker or a contributor, his work with Marvel Comics, his interviews, his thinking, his history, his just a broader profile or understanding about who he is beyond this one book. So that is what number 4 is. So you have 4 choices, whichever one moves you, or whichever one moves you the most. You choose that. That's step 1. Step 2 is you write the question. So you're writing a research question in one of the 6 forms. This is kind of your test to see if this whole semester, when we've talked about these 6 forms, if you can do it. So you take the topic that you chose and to narrow it, to focus it, to show us what it is that you're going to be checking for, you create your inquiry question. So far you've done 2 things. You've made a decision and you've written a 1-sentence question. Heavy lifting. Step 3, the research. Okay, so what you're creating here is a works cited page for step 3, but you're creating it with 5 written artifacts and 5 multimedia artifacts. 5 written artifacts, whether they're articles, blogs, books. Multimedia artifacts are images. So written artifacts are things we read. Multimedia artifacts in this case are things we see or watch, right? 5 and 5. What the 2 have in common, the 2 types of artifacts have in common, is that they all must respond, in your opinion, to your research question. When you include them in your works cited page, that means that you're saying, in some way, I see them as qualifying or as responses to my my inquiry question. The question that I just made in step 2 is answered by this artifact. Okay, so that's the works cited page, MLA style. You have a model for that, and we've done that before. So next we have, from those 10, we're doing the annotated bibliography. Choosing 5, only 5. So from those 10, you choose 5. And the 5 can be anything that moves you the most, what you want to do. The ones that you want to profile or focus on for your annotated bibliography. So the last annotated bibliography, I think you did 4. So this annotated bibliography, you do 5. And again, you do the properly formatted MLA citation. You do your global statements, the overall, why did the author or the filmmaker put this particular artifact into the world? What was the purpose of this? And then a quick summary. I wanted you to employ and use those academic verbs that I told you about. Walker states, Bush reports, Smith discusses, because that really helps us to give credit where credit is due and make sure that we avoid plagiarism. So we want to use that language as well as in-text citations. Remember that. The parentheses, to make sure that we're giving credit to the people who made these artifacts, these 5 artifacts. Number 4, the 4th thing you include in that paragraph are the quotes, the facts or the statistics. And then the fifth thing, that the quotes or facts or statistics, things that are most important, powerful as far as answering your particular question. Okay. The fifth thing are the 3 to 4 sentence commentary, which essentially is you telling us how this particular artifact qualified for your project and how it answers your question in your opinion, right? Because that's the only reason it is in this list, is because in your eyes, this particular artifact is a response to your question. And you're just explaining to us in your own words why this particular artifact does a good job of answering that question for you. So then what you're going to do last, of course, is turn it in. So you turn it in into Blackboard by Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. into an area called pre-work. That's the name of the link. So you go into Atavist 1, and inside of Atavist 1, you see a place to submit it called pre-work. And basically, all you're turning in is the topic. You're going to tell me which topic you chose. The second thing you're going to do is tell me the type of question and the question that you made. So I made a form question, form, colon, and then whatever the question is. So far, all you've done is made a decision and written a 1-sentence question. Then number 3 is your works cited page. Your works cited page has 10 things in it, 10 citations, 5 multimedia, 5 written artifacts. And then lastly, you have an annotated bibliography with 5 of the artifacts annotated. It's your choice which 5. And they don't, it's your choice. I just caution you that sometimes it's difficult to track down information about images, but it can be done. So if you're choosing to do that, to do an annotation on an image, which is totally doable, it's totally doable if you consider the captions, if you consider the photo essays that we saw people do in the MITs at the beginning of the semester. It's totally doable. And the deadline again is Wednesday, November 15th at 8 a.m. I hope you guys have an awesome long weekend. And I will see you soon.